The hammer slipped from my sweat-slicked fingers and clattered against the splintered wood of the fence post, echoing like a gunshot in the still Montana afternoon. Harlan's calloused hand caught my wrist before I could pull away, his grip firm yet trembling, pulling me closer until I could smell the earth and pine on his skin. "Brandon," he whispered, voice rough as gravel. "I've been lying to myself for years. About Jake, about this town, about wanting you like this. I never thought a broken fence would unravel everything I thought I knew about loyalty, desire, and the quiet lies we tell ourselves in small-town America." That summer in Bitterroot Valley, Montana, the air hung heavy with the scent of wild sage and impending rain, the kind that soaks through your bones and forces truths to the surface. At 22, fresh out of my sophomore year at the University of Montana in Missoula, I'd come home to my parents' modest ranch house on the edge of town, figuring I'd kill time with odd jobs and beers with Jake, my best friend since we were kids chasing fireflies in the hayfields. Jake Reed lived just a mile down the dirt road, in a sprawling two-story farmhouse that had seen better days. Peeling white paint, a sagging porch, and that godforsaken fence along the back pasture that kept letting his dad's cattle wander into the neighbor's corn. Harlan Reed, Jake's father, was a fixture in my life, the kind of man who embodied the rugged heart of Montana. Broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair cropped short under his ever-present Stetson, and eyes like weathered slate that missed nothing. Widowed for a decade after Jake's mom lost her battle with cancer, Harlan ran the ranch single-handedly, his days a blur of mending barbed wire, branding calves, and nursing a quiet sorrow that showed in the way he nursed his evening whiskeys alone on the porch. It started innocently enough, or so I told myself. Jake had texted me one sweltering July morning, "Dad's fence is fucked again. Cows in the road. Help. Beers after." I grabbed my toolbox from the garage, Dad's old Craftsman set, heavy with the ghosts of family projects, and drove over in my beat-up Ford pickup, the one with the cracked windshield that let in too much sun. The Reed place looked the same as always. The red barn leaning slightly to the left, the windmill creaking lazily, and Harlan out by the corral, shirtless in the heat, muscles corded from years of labor glistening under the relentless blue sky. "Mornin', Brandon," he'd called, wiping his brow with the back of his arm, his voice carrying that low, unhurried drawl that made everything sound like a secret. I nodded, trying not to stare at the way his jeans hung low on his hips, faded from too many washes. At 22, I was still navigating the sharp edges of my own sexuality. Gay, sure, but buried deep under layers of small-town discretion and the fear of what coming out might cost. Jake knew, of course. We'd shared a fumbling kiss once in high school, drunk on stolen vodka, but it fizzled into the easy camaraderie of brothers. Harlan, he was off limits, a fantasy I'd nursed in stolen glances during barbecues and football games, the kind of man who made my pulse stutter without ever knowing why. We worked side by side for hours, the sun climbing higher, turning the air thick and oppressive. Harlan handed me nails and wire, our fingers brushing more than once, each contact sending a jolt through me like static from the dry grass. Jake was late, something about his shift at the feed store in town, and the silence between us stretched, filled only by the rhythmic thud of hammers and the distant lowing of cattle. Harlan talked in fits and starts, about the drought last year that nearly broke him, about Jake's dreams of escaping to Seattle for vet school, about how the ranch felt emptier every day. "You're a good kid, Brandon," he said suddenly, pausing to swig from a thermos of iced tea, his throat working as he swallowed. "Always have been. Jake's lucky to have you." There was something in his tone, a weight that made my cheeks burn, and I mumbled a thanks, focusing on twisting the barbed wire tight. But then the post gave way under my pull, splintering with a crack that sent me stumbling forward. Harlan lunged, his arms wrapping around my waist to steady me, and for a heartbeat, we were chest to chest, his breath warm against my neck. Time fractured there in the dust and heat. His hands lingered on my sides, thumbs pressing into the fabric of my shirt, and I looked up to find his eyes locked on mine, not with the paternal warmth I'd always known, but with a hunger that mirrored the ache I'd hidden for years. "Sorry," he muttered, releasing me too quickly, stepping back as if burned. But the damage was done. The air between us hummed with unspoken electricity. Jake arrived then, barreling up in his rusty Jeep, honking like an idiot. "What, you two lovebirds already done without me?" he joked, hopping out with a six-pack dangling from his fingers. We laughed it off, me forcing the sound, Harlan turning away to gather tools. But the seed was planted. That night, over burgers on the porch, Jake rambled about girls from town, the ones with spray tans and dreams of Nashville, while I stole glances at Harlan across the fire pit, his face illuminated by flickering flames, wondering if I'd imagined it all. The next day, Jake dragged me to Hamilton for a movie, some blockbuster explosion fest at the old Rex Theater, but my mind wandered back to the ranch, to the unfinished fence and the man who'd held me a beat too long. By evening, I was back, uninvited, claiming I needed to check the posts. Harlan was in the barn, forking hay into stalls, his flannel shirt open at the collar, revealing the silver chain he always wore, a relic from his wife. "Didn't expect you," he said, leaning on the pitchfork. But there was no accusation in it, only a quiet curiosity. We worked again, the rhythm familiar now but charged. He asked about school. My graphic design major, the city life that felt worlds away, and I found myself opening up, words spilling about the anonymity of Missoula parties, the hookups in dorm rooms that left me emptier than before. "Sounds lonely," he observed, driving a staple into the wood with a single, precise swing. "Out here, it's just you and the land. No hiding." His words hung there, and I froze, hammer midair. "Hiding," I echoed, heart pounding. Harlan met my gaze, steady and unflinching. "We all do it, son. But sometimes, the fence breaks, and you gotta face what's on the other side." The double meaning landed like a punch, and before I could respond, he straightened, dusting his hands. "Come for dinner. Jake's working late." I should have said no. Instead, I followed him inside, the screen door slapping shut behind us like a judgment. The kitchen smelled of simmering chili and cornbread, domestic and warm, a far cry from the sterile apartments I'd known in college. We ate at the scarred oak table, forks scraping plates, conversation skirting the edges of something deeper. He poured me a beer, Coors, cold from the fridge, and talked about his youth, wild rides and rodeos across Wyoming, the girl who tamed him until she didn't. "Love's a hell of a thing," he said, staring into his glass. "Twists you up, leaves you wondering if it's worth the pain." By the time the dishes were done, dusk had fallen, painting the windows purple. He walked me to the door, hand on my shoulder, and paused. "Thanks for today. Means more than you know." His thumb grazed my collarbone, accidental or not, and I turned, words failing me. Our eyes locked again, and in that suspended moment, the world narrowed to the space between us. 5 inches, shrinking fast. Then he kissed me, not tentative, not exploratory, but with the pent-up force of a man who dammed a river inside himself for too long. His lips were rough, tasting of salt and beer, his beard scraping my skin as one hand cupped the back of my neck, pulling me in. I melted into it, hands fisting his shirt, the shock giving way to a flood of need I'd denied for years. It lasted seconds, eternities, until he broke away, breathing hard, eyes wide with regret and fire. "Go," he rasped, stepping back into shadow. "Before I do something we can't undo." I drove home in a daze, the taste of him lingering, my body alive in ways it hadn't been before. That night, sleep evaded me, the ceiling fan whirring accusations. What had I done? Harlan Reed, Jake's dad, the man who'd taught us to fish, bandaged our scrapes, was now the center of a storm I couldn't outrun. And as thunder rumbled over the valley, promising rain, I knew the fence wasn't the only thing breaking. The days blurred into a haze of stolen moments and gnawing guilt, each sunrise pulling me deeper into the gravity of Harlan Reed. Bitterroot Valley, with its endless skies and whispering aspens, had always felt like a cradle safe, unchanging. But now it pressed in, complicit in the secret blooming between us. I'd wake to texts from Jake, oblivious invites to hike the Bitterroot River or grab shakes at the diner in town, and I'd go, plastering on smiles while my mind replayed that kiss. The heat of his mouth, the tremor in his touch, the way he'd looked at me like I was both salvation and sin. Harlan kept his distance at first, professional in the fields. His nods curt when our paths crossed at the post office or the gas station on Highway 93. But the pull was magnetic, inevitable. A week after the kiss, Jake mentioned offhand that his dad needed help with the irrigation ditch. Pipes clogged from the recent downpour, and I volunteered before I could think, claiming it was no big deal. Jake clapped me on the back, grateful, clueless to the war raging inside me. The ditch ran along the eastern pasture, a muddy vein snaking through knee-high grass, and Harlan was already there when I arrived. Waders pulled up over his jeans, shovel in hand. The air was crisp, laced with petrichor, the kind of morning that made you believe in second chances. "Didn't have to come," he said, not meeting my eyes as he jabbed the shovel into the earth. But his voice cracked, just enough to betray him. "Figured you could use the company," I replied, grabbing a second shovel from the truck bed. We worked in silence, the scrape of metal on clay the only sound, until the sun crested the hills and warmed our backs. Sweat beaded on his forehead, trickling down the furrow of his brow, and I caught myself staring, remembering the texture of his skin under my fingers. He straightened first, wiping his face with a bandana. "We gotta talk about this, Brandon." The words were steel-wrapped velvet, and I nodded, heart slamming against my ribs. We sat on the tailgate of his truck, boots dangling, the valley sprawling below us like a green quilt stitched with rivers. He lit a cigarette, Marlboros, the pack crumpled in his pocket, and exhaled slowly, smoke curling toward the clouds. "I've thought about men before," he admitted, gaze fixed on the horizon. "Back in the rodeo days, a few times. Drunk, mostly. Nothing like this." He turned to me then, eyes raw. "You're Jake's age. Hell, I changed your diapers. This ain't right." The confession hung between us, heavy as the damp earth. I wanted to argue, to tell him age was just a number, that the lines of right and wrong blurred in the quiet spaces of desire. Instead, I reached for his hand, lacing our fingers, the calluses on his palm rough against my smoother skin. "It feels right to me," I whispered, and that was enough. What followed was a tentative exploration. Kisses traded in the shadow of the barn, hands wandering under flannel shirts in the cab of his truck after dark. Harlan was a study in contrasts, gentle in his touches, fierce in his restraint. He'd pull me close, murmuring my name like a prayer, then push away, haunted by ghosts I couldn't name. "Jake can never know," he'd say, and I'd nod, swallowing the bitterness, because for those stolen hours, the world made sense. Jake noticed something, though not the truth, but the shift. "You been weird lately," he said one afternoon as we floated the river on inner tubes, beers bobbing beside us. The water was cold, shocking against sun-warmed skin, and I laughed it off, splashing him until he dropped it. But his eyes lingered, brotherly concern flickering. Jake was all easy charm, blonde hair perpetually tousled, a grin that disarmed anyone, dreams of big city lights clashing with the pull of home. He'd always been my anchor, the one who pulled me through Dad's layoffs and Mom's quiet depressions. And now I was adrift, betraying him with every glance toward his father. The first real crack came at the county fair in Hamilton. Late August heat wave turning the midway into a sweatbox of fried dough and carnival lights. Jake had entered his roan mare in the cutting horse competition, and Harlan and I were there to cheer, sitting side by side on the bleachers, knees brushing in the crowd. The air buzzed with fiddle music and laughter, families picnicking on checkered blankets, the scent of cotton candy cloying and sweet. Jake placed third, a ribbon for effort, and we celebrated with funnel cakes, powdered sugar dusting our lips. As dusk fell, fireworks exploded overhead, painting the sky in bursts of red and gold. Harlan's hand found mine under the wooden slats, squeezing once, twice, a silent promise. I turned, our faces inches apart, and for a reckless moment, I leaned in. But Jake appeared then, clapping Harlan on the shoulder. "Dad, you see that spin? She nailed it." His enthusiasm was pure, untainted, and guilt twisted like a knife in my gut. That night, alone in my room, I paced the creaky floorboards, phone in hand. A text from Harlan glowed. "Can't stop thinking about you. Dangerous." I replied before sanity could intervene. "Meet me at the old mill tomorrow. Midnight." The mill ruins by the Clark Fork, abandoned since the logging boom faded. A skeleton of rusted beams and overgrown weeds, perfect for secrets. Midnight found me there, flashlight beam cutting through fog, heart racing like a spooked colt. He emerged from the trees, silhouette broad against the moon, and pulled me into the shadows without a word. Our kisses were urgent, clothes shedding like inhibitions, his body solid and unyielding under my hands. Harlan made love like he fixed fences, with precision and passion, every touch deliberate, drawing gasps from me that echoed off the stone walls. Afterward, we lay tangled on a blanket I'd brought, stars wheeling above, his fingers tracing patterns on my chest. "Tell me about her," I said softly, meaning his wife. He tensed, then sighed. "Elena was light, laughed at everything. After she went, it was like the sun dimmed." His voice broke, and I held him, the vulnerability cracking open something profound. For the first time, I saw him not as Jake's dad, but as Harlan. A man scarred by loss, reaching for connection in the dark. But dawn brought clarity, and with it, fear. As he dressed, Harlan's face hardened. "This ends now. For Jake." The words landed like frost, and I drove home numb, the taste of him fading on my tongue. Yet by evening, a knock at my door, Harlan, eyes stormy, pulling me into a kiss that said otherwise. We were addicts, feeding on the thrill, blind to the cliff edge. The breaking point loomed, inevitable as winter. Jake invited us camping up in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness. A boys' trip to bond, and I couldn't refuse. Tents pitched by a rushing creek, fire crackling under ponderosis, stories swapped over whiskey. Harlan sat across the flames, his gaze a brand on my skin, and when Jake stumbled off to bed, drunk and snoring, we slipped into the woods. It was ecstasy and agony. His weight pinning me to mossy ground, whispers lost in the wind. But as we returned, flushed and disheveled, Jake's tent flap rustled. He sat up, bleary-eyed. "You guys okay?" Harlan froze and I forced a laugh. "Just checking the fire." The lie tasted like ash. Back home, the facade frayed. Jake cornered me at the diner, over coffee gone cold. "Something's off with Dad. He's distant. And you're avoiding me." Panic clawed my throat. "Just summer blues." I lied, but his frown deepened. That night, Harlan showed up at my window like a thief, climbing the trellis with boyish awkwardness. We made love in silence, urgent and desperate, but as he left, his parting words chilled me. "If he finds out, it'll destroy us all." I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of betrayal crushing. How long could we dance on this knife's edge? The valley, once my haven, now felt like a cage, and as coyotes howled in the distance, I wondered if love was worth the ruin it promised. Autumn crept in like a thief, turning the aspens gold and the air sharp with the promise of frost, mirroring the chill settling in my bones. Bitterroot Valley prepared for its quiet hibernation. Harvest festivals in town, pickup trucks loaded with hay bales, the first skein of geese arrowing south. But for me, the season marked the unraveling of the fragile web I'd spun with Harlan. Our affair, born in summer's fever, now simmered in stolen fragments. A brush of hands in the hardware store aisle, a coded text about fence checks that meant midnight drives to forgotten clearings. Jake, bless his oblivious heart, planned a harvest party at the ranch. Bonfire, potluck, the whole town crammed into the back 40. "Dad's idea," he said, hauling coolers from his Jeep. "Says we need to shake off the dust." Harlan's eyes met mine across the yard, a flicker of warning and want, as neighbors strung lights and tuned guitars. I arrived early, helping set up tables under the strung bulbs, my stomach knotted tight. The party swelled with life. Mrs. Hargrove from the library ladling punch, Old Man Wilkins spinning yarns about 89 floods, kids darting through legs with sparklers. Jake was in his element, charming everyone with his easy laugh, pulling me into dances to twangy country tunes. "Loosen up, Bran," he teased, spinning me under his arm. But my gaze drifted to Harlan, leaning against the corral fence, beer in hand, his flannel unbuttoned just enough to tease the dark hair on his chest. As night deepened, the crowd thinned, embers glowing like fallen stars. Jake wandered off with a girl from the diner, redhead named Tessa, all freckles and flirtation, leaving me to help clean up. Harlan and I worked in tandem, stacking chairs, the silence thick with unspoken need. When the last truck rumbled away, he pulled me into the barn, the scent of hay and leather enveloping us. "Missed you," he growled, backing me against a stall door, his mouth claiming mine with a hunger that bordered on violence. We were reckless that night, clothes discarded in haste. His body a map of scars and strength I traced with reverent hands. He whispered endearments in the dark. "Beautiful boy, my secret fire," each one binding me tighter. But as we caught our breath, tangled in blankets on the loft floor, reality intruded. Jake's truck headlights sweeping the drive. We scrambled, hearts pounding, and by the time Jake stumbled in, reeking of cheap wine, we were innocents again, me crashing in the guest room, Harlan nursing a coffee at the table. "You two have fun without me?" Jake slurred, collapsing into a chair. Harlan's hand trembled on his mug, but he chuckled. "Just talking shop." The lie wove another thread in our tapestry of deceit. The next morning brought confrontation, subtle but slicing. Jake found me in the kitchen, pouring cereal, his eyes bloodshot. "Heard you up late. Everything good?" Suspicion laced his words, and I nodded too quickly. "Yeah, man. Just couldn't sleep." He studied me, then sighed. "Dad's been weird since Mom. But lately, it's like he's hiding something big." My spoon clattered into the bowl, milk splashing. "Like what?" "Dunno. Just, and you're part of it." He punched my arm lightly, but the gesture felt forced. Guilt gnawed deeper, a constant companion now, as I drove home replaying the accusation. Harlan texted later. "He suspects. We stop." But stopping was like halting a landslide. By evening, I was at his door, the pull irresistible. We met in secret spots after that. The hot springs tucked in the foothills, steam rising like our breaths, where he'd hold me in the mineral-scented water, talking of dreams deferred. "Wanted to be a sculptor once," he confessed one twilight, fingers molding my thigh like clay. Elena laughed, said I'd scare the cows. Laughter bubbled up, easing the tension, and I shared my sketches, hidden in my phone. Portraits of him, unwitting muse, captured in pencil strokes that betrayed my obsession. Yet the idyll fractured. Jake announced he was staying through winter, scrapping Seattle plans for family reasons. Harlan's face paled at dinner, fork pausing midair. "Proud of you, son," he said, but his eyes sought mine across the table, pleading. That night, alone in the barn, we argued in whispers. Me begging for more, him insisting on caution. "You're tearing me in two," I hissed, tears hot on my cheeks. He pulled me close, kissing away the salt. "Then let's end it clean." But clean was a myth. Days later, a storm hit, howling winds stripping leaves, rain lashing the windows like judgment. Power flickered out, and Jake, ever the fixer, suggested a guy's night at the ranch with cards and lanterns. Harlan protested weakly, but I saw the trap in it. Proximity, temptation, risk. The evening devolved into truth or dare light, whiskey loosening tongues. Jake dared Harlan to confess a regret, and the room stilled. Harlan stared into the flame, jaw tight, loving wrong, hurting the ones I care for most. The words landed like thunder, ambiguous yet pointed, and Jake laughed uneasily. "Deep, Dad." My turn. "Brandon, truth. Biggest secret." My mouth went dry, pulse roaring. Shoplifting candy as a kid. Lame, evasive, but Jake's eyes narrowed, sensing the dodge. Storm raging outside, we bunked down. Jake in his room, me on the couch, Harlan upstairs. But midnight found him descending, shadow in the hall, beckoning me to the porch. Rain sheeted down, blurring the world, and we stood under the overhang, soaked in seconds. "Can't do this," he murmured, but his hands betrayed him, sliding under my shirt. We kissed in the deluge, water streaming down our faces, a baptism of sorts. Footsteps on the stairs, Jake, flashlight in hand. "Power's back. You guys." He froze in the doorway, beam catching us. Harlan's arm around my waist, my head on his shoulder, too intimate for friends. The light dropped, clattering, and Jake's face crumpled. "What the fuck?" Time splintered. Harlan shoved me away, hands up. "Son, it's not." But Jake was gone, bolting into the rain toward his truck, engine roaring to life. I chased, slipping in mud, but he peeled out, taillights vanishing into the night. Harlan gripped my shoulders, face ashen. "Go after him. Fix this." I drove blindly, wipers slashing, heart in my throat, to Jake's favorite spot, the river overlook where we'd skipped stones as boys. His truck idled there, door open, rain pooling inside. He sat on the hood, soaked, fists clenched. "How long, Bran? My best friend and my dad." Rage and hurt warred in his voice, cracking on the last word. Tears mixed with rain on my face. "Since summer. The fence." "I didn't mean God, Jake. I'm sorry." He shoved me when I neared, hard enough to stagger. "Sorry? You're fucking my father. In our house." The betrayal poured out, years of trust shattered, his world tilting. "I trusted you. Both of you." We stood there, shouting over the storm, until exhaustion won. He let me drive him home, silent fury radiating. Harlan waited on the porch, drenched, but Jake stormed past, slamming his door. "Don't," he snarled when Harlan reached for him. "Just don't." The house fell quiet, save for dripping eaves. Harlan sank to the steps, head in hands. "Ruined everything." I knelt beside him, touching his knee. "We can fix it." But doubt gnawed. Had we gone too far, too fast? As lightning forked the sky, illuminating his broken profile, I realized the real storm was just beginning. The fallout from that rain-soaked night settled like hoarfrost over the ranch, brittle and unforgiving, turning every interaction into a minefield of averted eyes and clipped words. Bitterroot Valley, with its postcard perfection of snow-dusted peaks and frost-laced fences, mocked our mess. Life marched on, elk bugling in the hills, while Jake's silence carved deeper wounds. He moved through days like a ghost. Breakfasts eaten standing, shifts at the feed store extended to avoid home. His once open face now a mask of quiet accusation. Harlan retreated into work, dawn to dusk labors that left him hollow-eyed and dirt-streaked, the ranch his penance. "Give him time," he told me over the phone, voice gravel rough from lack of sleep, but time felt like torture. I texted Jake apologies, voicemails pleading for coffee, anything, but responses were curt, busy, later. The rejection stung, a reminder of the brother I'd lost in pursuit of forbidden fire. Me? I wandered, sketching feverishly in my journal. Harlan's profile etched in charcoal, Jake's hurt eyes in watercolor smears. Art my confessor when words failed. Mom noticed, her gentle probes over dinner. "Everything all right with the boys?" Met with deflections. Dad, buried in his garage tinkering, offered gruff advice. "Men fix things head-on, son. If only it were that simple." A week in, Jake cornered me at the post office, mailboxes slamming like punctuation. "We talk. Now." His tone brooked no argument, and we ended up at the diner, in a corner booth smelling of grease and regret. Over black coffee, he unloaded. The shock of seeing us, the betrayal twisting like barbed wire in his gut. "He's my dad, Bran, the one constant after Mom. And you're supposed to have my back." "I do," I choked, tears pricking. "I love him, Jake. Didn't plan it." The admission hung, raw and real, and Jake recoiled. "Love? That's bullshit. It's lust. sneaking around like thieves. He raked hands through his hair, voice dropping. He hasn't been with anyone since her. Thought he was broken. Now this. We circled the pain. His fear of losing family, my guilt over the secrecy, the homophobia lurking in small-town whispers if word spread. Doesn't have to be public, I ventured. We could figure it out. Jake laughed bitterly. Figure it? You're dreaming. This town's got eyes everywhere. He stood, tossing bills on the table. Stay away from him. For me. The ultimatum landed heavy, and I drove to the ranch, needing Harlan's anchor. He was in the forge, hammering a horseshoe, sparks flying like stars. I watched from the door, heart aching at his focus, strength masking fragility. When he saw me, hammer stilled. Jake talked. He's processing. Harlan nodded, setting tools aside, pulling me into an embrace that smelled of iron and sweat. Missed you, he murmured, lips brushing my temple. We clung there, the forge's heat mirroring our own. But when I sought more, he pulled back. Not here. Not now. Denial fueled desperation. That night, I snuck to his room after Jake's snores echoed, slipping under covers worn soft by years. Harlan stirred, body responding before mind caught up. Our lovemaking hushed and urgent, a rebellion against the rift. Can't lose you, I whispered post-climax, head on his chest. He stroked my hair, silent, but his heartbeat thrummed truth. Winter deepened, Thanksgiving a strained affair. Turkey carved with tense precision, conversations skirting landmines. Jake sat across from me, polite stranger, while Harlan's foot nudged mine under the table, a secret Morse code. After, as snow fell fat flakes outside, Jake pulled Harlan aside. Their voices rose, muffled through the wall. How could you? I didn't choose this. Ending in slammed doors. I fled to Missoula for finals. City lights a bomb, but absence amplified longing. Texts from Harlan, photos of iced fences, captions like, wishing you were here to fix this, kept the flame alive. Jake's came sporadic. Dad's drinking more. Help. Guilt propelled me back mid-December, arriving to a ranch blanketed white, holiday lights twinkling defiantly. The crisis crested on Christmas Eve. Jake had planned a tree trimming, forcing normalcy, but tempers frayed over ornaments. Elena's glass baubles, fragile as memory. Put it down, Harlan snapped when Jake fumbled one. It's not a toy. Jake whirled. Nothing's a toy to you anymore. Not the ranch, not me, not him. The hymn detonated, and I froze by the ladder, tinsel in hand. Harlan's face drained. Son. Jake advanced, voice breaking. I saw you, last night in the barn, kissing like teenagers. The room spun. I'd slipped out for a walk, Harlan following, our moment caught in Jake's insomnia. Betrayal tripled, his on us, ours on him. Jake fled to his room, sobs echoing, and Harlan sank to the floor, head bowed. My boy. God, what have I done? I knelt, arms around him, but he shrugged me off. This ends, Brandon. Tonight. The words eviscerated, sharper than any storm. You don't mean, I do. His eyes, once stormy with passion, now flat with resolve. Jake's all I have left. Can't break him more. Numb, I drove through snow-swept roads, car fishtailing on ice, tears blurring taillights. Home was empty. Parents visiting kin in Bozeman, and I collapsed on my bed, chest heaving. Phone buzzed, Jake. Come back. We talk. Hope flickered, fragile. At the ranch, fire dying in the hearth. Jake waited, Harlan absent. He told me everything, Jake said, voice steady. Wants me to hate you. I don't, but it hurts. We talked till dawn. His confusion over Harlan's secrecy, my fear of losing both. Love him if you must, Jake relented finally. But no lies, and slow. For all of us. Relief washed, tentative. Harlan returned at sunrise, face haggard from a night in the barn. Seeing us together, he halted. Jake stood. Dad, we figure this. Family first. Harlan's nod was jerky, eyes glistening. He glanced at me, a spark amid ashes. If you'll have us. Healing began there, incremental. Group dinners with stilted laughs, Jake joining fence fixes that were now just work. Harlan and I met openly but chaste. Walks by the frozen river, hands brushing gloves. Tension simmered, but respect grew, Jake's acceptance a bridge. New Year's brought shift. Town party at the community hall, fiddles and fireworks. And in the crush, Harlan pulled me aside. Proud of you, he murmured, kissed light on my cheek. First public gesture. Jake saw, nodded from across the room. A silent blessing. As midnight struck, confetti raining, I kissed Harlan fully, world fading to cheers. But peace was illusion. January unearthed Harlan's secret. A letter from Elena's old flame, postmarked Seattle, claiming unfinished business. She wrote to him before dying. Harlan confessed one night, firelit, asked him to look after me. He thinks. More. Jealousy flared, but worse, doubt. Was our love rebound? Or real? The letter sparked crisis. Harlan distant, Jake sensing relapse. Don't fuck this up, he warned me. I confronted Harlan in the snow-draped meadow, words tumbling. Am I just comfort? He pulled me close. No. You're home. Passion reignited. Snow angels and drifts. But the shadow lingered. February's thaw mirrored our tentative bloom. Ices breaking, paths clearing. Yet betrayal's echo whispered. Could trust rebuild on cracked foundations? Spring arrived in fits and starts. Mud season turning the valley into a quagmire of brown slush and tentative green shoots. Much like the fragile regrowth in our fractured trio. Bitterroot's rivers swelled with meltwater, carving new paths through banks worn smooth by time. A metaphor I clung to as Harlan, Jake, and I navigated the debris of winter's revelations. Trust was a sapling, easily uprooted, but we tended it with deliberate care. Shared meals where laughter edged in, Jake's wary jokes about the old man stealing my best friend, Harlan's quiet gratitude in sidelong glances. I threw myself into the ranch, trading city sketches for soil-stained hands, planting barley in furrows, repairing the very fence that started it all. Harlan taught me the ranch's rhythms, his voice a low rumble over the tractor's growl. Feel the land, Brandon. It gives back what you put in. Our touches lingered now, sanctioned. A hand on the small of my back as we unloaded feed, fingers intertwining over fence wire. Jake watched, sometimes joining, his acceptance a gift wrapped in caution. Slow, he'd remind, but his smiles came easier, the hurt fading to scar. Yet the letter from Seattle festered, an unspoken abscess. Harlan burned it one evening, ashes swirling in the fire pit, but the words lingered. Elena wanted us happy. Together. I pressed him during a trail ride up the Sapphire Mountains, horses plodding through wildflower meadows. Who is he? Harlan reined in, face shadowed under his hat. Tom, old friend, thinks he knows what's best. Jealousy twisted, not just rivalry, but fear that Harlan's heart held rooms I couldn't enter. Does he? I asked, voice small. Harlan dismounted, pulling me down, hands framing my face. No, you're it. All of it. His kiss was fierce, wind-whipped, sealing promises amid pine-scented air. We made love that afternoon in a sun-dappled clearing, urgent and affirming, bodies sinking like seasons turning. But doubt whispered. Was it enough? Jake's crisis hit mid-May. A call at dawn. Come quick. Dad's hurt. Harlan had flipped the ATV in a gully. Leg broken, ribs cracked. Routine hazard turned terror. Hospital in Hamilton smelled of antiseptic and fear. Jake pacing the ER hall, face ashen. Stupid fucker, he muttered. But worry cracked his voice. I held his shoulder, solidarity, as doctors set bones. Recovery chained Harlan to the farmhouse, crutches clacking like accusations. Jake and I tag-teamed care, meals, meds, midnight vigils. Intimacy shifted. Stolen kisses when Jake slept, Harlan's hand in mine during painful therapies. Hate being weak, he'd growl, but vulnerability bonded us deeper. Jake softened, sharing stories of Elena's strength, how she'd nursed Harlan through a rodeo wreck. "You're good for him," he admitted one night, passing me a beer on the porch. "Just don't break him." Tom arrived unannounced, late June heat wave baking the earth. A silver-haired man in a button-down, city polish clashing with ranch dust. He pulled up in a rental SUV, arms open for Harlan. "Heard about the spill. Elena'd kill me if I didn't check." Jake welcomed him warily, I with forced smile, but tension crackled like dry lightning. Tom stayed a week, helping with books, Harlan's ledger's a mess from neglect. Evenings on the porch, whiskey flowing, stories flowed. Elena's laugh, shared regrets. I hovered, outsider in my own love, jealousy curdling. One night, catching Tom clasping Harlan's hand. "She'd want this?" I snapped, storming to the barn. Harlan followed, crutches abandoned. "Brandon, wait." In the dim, horse-scented air, I unloaded. "Am I placeholder? For him? For her?" Tears hot, fists clenched. He limped close, cupping my jaw. "Never. Tom's past. You're now. Future." His kiss mended, slow and deep, but the seed of insecurity rooted. Jake confronted Tom next morning, blunt as a hammer. "What do you want here?" Tom's eyes twinkled, but pain lurked. "Closure. For Elena. For us." Us, the word knifed. Turns out, Tom and Harlan had history. A brief affair post-Elena, buried in grief. Thought it helped. Harlan confessed later, alone with me. But it didn't. "You do." Betrayal layered. Harlan's omission, Tom's intrusion. Jake, overhearing, exploded at dinner. Plates crashing, voices rising. Lies on lies. Mom deserved better. He stormed out, tires spinning gravel. Tom left next day, parting hug for Harlan lingering too long. "Call if you need," he said. Eyes on me, challenge or pity. The rift widened. Jake crashed with a cousin in Missoula. Text sparse. "Need space." Ranch echoed empty. Harlan and I orbiting in grief-tinged passion. Nights of fevered sex, days of strained silence. "He's right," Harlan said, staring at Elena's photo. "I've poisoned everything." Crisis peaked July 4th. Town picnic under cottonwoods by the river. Fireworks planned, but storm clouds gathered. Jake showed, distant, but present. We picnicked awkwardly, potato salad, small talk until kids' games forced teams. Harlan and I versus Jake, tug of war over mudslick grass. Laughter bubbled, genuine, pulling Jake in. As dusk fell, fireworks bursting in defiant color, Jake pulled us aside. "Missed this." Us. Tears shone. "But the secrets, they kill." Harlan nodded, arm around him. "No more. I love Brandon. Openly. If you'll stand with us." Jake's gaze flicked to me, weighing. "For Mom's memory. For family." He hugged us, fierce, the dam breaking. Healing surged, electric. Jake returned, boundaries drawn. No PDAs at home, but acceptance bloomed. Harlan proposed therapy. Group sessions in Hamilton, unpacking grief, sexuality, the mess of modern love in conservative corners. "We're pioneers," he joked, but eyes serious. Summer waned, harvest gold, and our bond solidified. Picnics, rides, Harlan's leg healing under my massages. Yet climax loomed. Harlan's ranch teetered, debts from drought years mounting. Auction whispers in town, a developer's eye on the land for condos. "Can't lose it," Harlan confided, voice breaking. "It's Elena." Us. I rallied. Art show in Missoula, my sketches of the valley, Harlan's hands on reins, Jake's grin with the mare, selling enough for a loan. Jake crowd-funded locals, stories of Reed legacy stirring hearts. We fought, united, climaxing at town hall meeting, voices raised against sprawl. Victory. Ranch saved, community affirmed. Fall painted triumph, but emotional undercurrents stirred. Harlan's vulnerability peaked one harvest moon night, bonfire roaring. "Scared," he admitted, head on my lap. "Of forever. of failing you. I kissed his brow. We're enough. Lovemaking under stars, tender, sealed vows unspoken. Yet betrayal's ghost lingered, Jake's occasional flinches, my insecurities. As leaves fell, I wondered, could love weather all storms? October's chill nipped at the heels of summer's victory, the valley transforming into a tapestry of crimson maples and frost-kissed pumpkins, a season of reflection that mirrored the introspective turn in our lives. The ranch stood resilient, its fences mended not just with wire, but with the hard-won steel of forgiveness. Yet beneath the surface, emotional fault lines trembled, waiting for the next tremor. Harlan, Jake, and I had forged a new normal. Breakfasts with easy banter, evenings where Jake ribbed us over chores. But the depth of our scars demanded reckoning, pulling us toward a climax of raw, unfiltered truth. Harlan's therapy unearthed layers I'd only glimpsed. The closeted experiments of his youth, suppressed under macho rodeo codes. The grief that twisted attraction into guilt after Elena. Felt like cheating her memory, he shared one session, voice thick, Jake and I flanking him in the circle of mismatched chairs. Jake nodded, adding his piece, the anger masking fear of abandonment, of losing the father he'd idolized. My turn cracked me open. The closet's isolation, how loving Harlan had freed me, yet terrorized me with loss. You're my family, I said, hand finding Harlan's. Jake's squeeze on my shoulder grounding. Post-session drives home wound through canyons ablaze with fall color. Windows down, wind whipping confessions into the ether. Proud of us? Harlan murmured one dusk, fingers laced with mine over the gearshift. Jake in the back, scrolling his phone, grunted approval. Don't get sappy. Race you to the hayloft later. Laughter bubbled, healing balm. But conflict brewed external now, the world's judgment seeping in. Town whispers amplified. Old Wilkins at the co-op muttering about that Reed boy and his dad, unnatural. Fueled by Tom's loose-lipped call to a mutual friend. Harlan shrugged it off publicly, but privately it gnawed. This place chews up different, he said, staring at the ceiling post love, my head pillowed on his chest. Worth fighting. Doubt crept, insidious. I pulled away, nights spent sketching alone, lines jagged with uncertainty. Jake noticed, confronting over coffee at the diner. He's spiraling cause of you. Hurt flared. Me? The town's poison, not bull. Show him you're in. His bluntness pierced, brotherly once more. The breaking storm hit mid-month, a nor'easter dumping sleet that iced roads and isolated the ranch. Power out, generator humming, we hunkered. Harlan stoking the hearth, Jake rigging lights, me cooking can stew over camp stove. Cozied in blankets, stories flowed. Childhood pranks, Elena's holiday disasters, until thunder crashed and Harlan winced, old rodeo injury flaring. In the dim, I massaged his back, Jake passing whiskey. Vulnerability peaked. Harlan confessed a relapse temptation. Text to Tom during a low, deleted unsent. Scared of failing you both. Betrayal stung fresh, but Jake's hand on his knee steadied. We all slip. Talk next time. My forgiveness came tearful. Kiss sealing. We're your net. Isolation forged intimacy. That night, with Jake crashed early, Harlan and I loved slowly by firelight, bodies a dialogue of reassurance. Stay, he breathed, climax shuddering. I did, dawn finding us entwined, Jake's knowing grin over breakfast acknowledging the shift. Thaw brought outsiders. Seattle recruiter for Jake, vet program offered tempting escape. Your call, Harlan said, eyes shadowed, fearing echo of Elena's loss. Jake wavered, confiding in me during a hike, crimson leaves crunching underfoot. Love it here, but dreams. I hugged him. Chase, we'll visit. His decision, defer, stay, eased Harlan but ignited my crisis. Missoula called, senior year looming, city freedoms clashing with ranch roots. Go, Harlan urged, porch swing creaking. Don't tether for me. Panic rose. And us. Love bends, doesn't break. Climax crested All Hallows Eve, Town-haunted hayride turning confessional. Costumed as ghosts, white sheets, silly grins. We rode wagons through moonlit fields, laughter masking turmoil. At the bonfire finale, masks off, Harlan pulled me aside amid jack-o'-lantern glow. Marry me, not legal here but vows. Real. Shock rooted me, joy warring fear. Jake! He nodded, appearing with rings. Simple bands hammered from old horseshoes. Family tradition. Say yes, idiot. Tears flowed, hugs fierce. The three of us a knot unbreakable. Yet crisis lingered internal. My father's health scare, heart murmur, doc's orders to slow, pulled me homeward, amplifying divides. Can't split time, I agonized, Harlan's arms my harbor. Betrayal echoed in self-doubt. Was I enough for both worlds? Healing journey intensified. Weekend in Missoula, Harlan meeting my profs, Jake tagging for concert. City lights dazzled him, like stars fell, broadening horizons. Back home, community shifted, Wilkins apologizing over fence chat. Live and let, acceptance trickling. November's bare branches framed resolve. Harlan proposed formally under Aspen Grove. Knees in frost, Jake officiating impromptu. Vows exchanged. Through storms and silences. Mine, your anchor. His, Jake's toast. To us, messed up, but whole. Winter's approach whispered promise, but emotional underbelly stirred. Harlan's nightmares of loss. My art school's scholarship tempting permanence away. As first snow dusted, I sketched our triad. Interlocked hands, vowing balance. Climax's afterglow faded to quiet conflicts. Jake's budding romance with Tessa, testing boundaries. My closeted campus fears. Yet each hurdle climbed stronger. Love's forge tempering us. December's solstice eve, Yule log crackling, we danced. Harlan slow with me, Jake twirling Tessa. Family expanded, wounds scarring to strength. But as midnight tolled, Harlan's whisper, forever starts now. I wondered, could we sustain the miracle? Winter wrapped the valley in crystalline hush, snow blanketing fields like forgiveness, muffling the world's clamor as our story crested into a profound, humanistic denouement. Bitterroot, with its star-pricked nights and chimney smoke curling like prayers, became the stage for our final acts of grace, where betrayal's ashes fertilized growth, and love emerged not as fairy tale, but as resilient human tapestry. Harlan, Jake, and I, forged in fire, now walked steadier paths, each step a testament to vulnerability's power. Christmas dawned white, the ranch aglow with lights strung by Jake's steady hand, Elena's ornaments gleaming like talismans, gifts unwrapped slowly, Harlan's leather journal for my sketches, Jake's custom saddle for his mare, my framed portrait of us three windswept, laughing over the mantel. Family, Harlan said, voice thick, pulling us into embrace. No grand gestures, just presence, human, imperfect. January's grip tightened, blizzards isolating, but intimacy deepened. Harlan and I explored openly. Drives to hot springs, steam veiling kisses. Town square handholds, stares met with chin lifts. Jake, dating Tessa steadily, confided joys and jitters. She's city-bound, like my old dreams. And we counseled, brothers in arms. My Missoula commute balanced. Weekends home, calls nightly. Harlan's letters tucked in care packages. Words like, your absence aches, but swells my heart. Conflict resurfaced subtle. Dad's diagnosis worsened, bypass looming, pulling me inward. Go, Harlan insisted, driving me to Billings for surgery. Hospital vigils tested, nights on vinyl chairs, Harlan's texts anchors. Post-op, Dad's gruff proud son. Of all. After hearing our story, unlocked tears. Love's love, he rasped, Mom nodding. Acceptance rippled familial. Jake's crisis echoed springs. Tessa's job offer in Seattle clashed with roots. Can't leave you two fools. He joked over beers, but eyes shadowed. Harlan's advice, follow heart, son. We built this strong. Mirrored his own sacrifices. Jake chose compromise. Hybrid program, weekends home. Tessa integrated, dinners lively with her quips. My climax personal, art thesis loomed, portfolio demanding voice. Nights in studio, I poured us. Harlan's weathered hands cradling mine. Jake's grin defiant against sunset. Narratives of queer rural love, raw and redemptive. Show opening in Missoula, Harlan and Jake attending. Suits starched awkward. Stunning. Harlan whispered amid applause, pride beaming. A gallery scout's interest whispered future. Gallery in Bozeman, but I grounded. Ours first. Betrayal's final echo. Anonymous note slipped under ranch door. Sodom in our valley. Repent. Town's underbelly. Fundamentalist fringes. Harlan burned it, but fear flickered. Jake rallied neighbors. Barbecue invite. Stories shared. Responses varied. Support from youth. Wary nods from elders. Times change, Mrs. Hargrove said, patting my hand. Progress inching. Healing's arc peaked equinox. March thaw flooding creeks with renewal. We renewed vows streamside, Harlan and I, Jake witness, Tessa photographer. Words simple. In joy and jagged edges, I choose you. Rings exchanged anew. Picnic following. Sandwiches. Laughter echoing. April bloomed defiant. Ranch thriving. Calving season. Harlan's limp gone. Jake's hands steady with newborns. I graduated, cap tassel swing captured in photos. Family cheering front row. Job offer. Adjunct at Bozeman gallery side gig. Balance secured. Summer cycled full. Fence fixes ritual now. Hammers sinking like heartbeats. Jake proposed to Tessa under aspens, our circle widening. Harlan and I built addition. Guest suite for visits. Nursery teas for dreams unspoken. Autumn's gold heralded reflection. One eve, porch swing creaking. Harlan mused. Thought love was loss. You taught abundance. Jake, arm around Tessa, nodded. Broke us to mend better. Winter's return, solstice fire. We toasted journeys. Betrayals to bonds, crises to clarity. No tidy bows. Life's mess lingers. Whispers fade slow. Doubts whisper occasional. But value gleams. Love as verb, chosen daily. Family as chosen kin. Humanity in fractures mended with grace. As snow fell soft, Harlan's hand in mine. Jake's laugh across the yard. I knew. We'd shocked ourselves into becoming whole, human, home.